Investments in education. The prioritization of education is a crucial factor in the long-term success of any society. However, in warm climate countries where the natural psychology is geared towards short-term gain, education tends to be deprioritized at the state level. The reason for this can be explained by the fact that warm climate countries' majority inhabitants are less prone to thinking about projects or endeavors that yield a return after a prolonged period of time. Education requires significant investment and takes a long time to deliver a return. In such societies, people tend to focus more on immediate needs and do not prioritize long-term investments like education. This is the general collective behavior of the society, and it is not to say that people of warm climates generally don't pursue higher education. Those that do are a minority, and many of them have migrated to Western countries. This lack of investment in education has serious consequences for the long-term development and progress of such societies. Without a well-educated population, a society cannot fully participate in the global knowledge economy, nor can it develop and compete in areas such as scientific and technological innovation. This, in turn, leads to a further decline in economic growth and development, perpetuating a cycle of underdevelopment. However, by prioritizing investment in education and developing an educational ecosystem that fosters critical thinking and innovation, societies can overcome this barrier. This requires a long-term view and significant investment in education and research, as well as the creation of a culture that values education and encourages lifelong learning. Furthermore, an integrated international system that fosters knowledge sharing and ecosystem integration can also help boost education in third-world countries. This can involve international partnerships, exchange programs, and the sharing of best practices and innovations to help support the development of educational systems in these countries. By doing so, we can help create a more equitable world where all people have access to the knowledge and tools necessary to achieve their full potential. Investment in education requires significant funding and a long-term commitment to see its benefits. The allocation of these funds is often in the hands of leaders and policymakers who must decide how to prioritize the use of resources. In societies where the natural psychology is geared toward short-term gain, leaders may be more inclined to invest in projects that deliver immediate benefits or have a more visible and tangible impact, rather than those that require a longer-term investment in education. However, investing in education can lead to significant long-term benefits, both for individuals and society as a whole. It can improve individuals' employment prospects and earning potential, leading to economic growth and prosperity. Educated individuals are also more likely to make better decisions for themselves and their communities, resulting in more stable and peaceful societies. But to realize these benefits, leaders and policymakers must prioritize the long-term benefits of education, even if they do not immediately see the tangible benefits. This prioritization requires a shift in thinking from short-term gain to long-term investment. Leaders and policymakers must be willing to make decisions that may not have immediate, tangible benefits, but will pay off in the long run. They must be willing to take risks, invest in education, and be patient while waiting for the benefits to materialize. This requires a degree of selflessness and a willingness to prioritize the greater good over immediate personal gain. Furthermore, it is important for leaders and policymakers to communicate the benefits of education to their constituents and build public support for these investments. By highlighting the long-term benefits of education and investing in programs that demonstrate its value, leaders can help shift societal attitudes and priorities toward a greater emphasis on long-term investments that benefit society as a whole. It is true that aid for education has been a common tool used by developed nations to help developing nations. However, the effectiveness of such aid has often been called into question. One reason for this is that aid-providing agencies do not always take into account the natural psychology of the recipients, which may differ from their own. As we have discussed earlier, people from warm climate countries tend to be more geared towards short-term gain rather than long-term benefit for the greater good of society. This means that even if aid is provided for education, the natural tendency of the recipients may be to prioritize short-term gain over long-term educational investment. Another issue is the misallocation of funds, which can happen due to corruption and mismanagement. Aid for education often requires not only financial resources but also trained personnel, modern equipment, and appropriate infrastructure, which may be lacking in the recipient countries. In some cases, aid-providing agencies may not have a proper system in place to monitor the effective use of the funds they provide, leading to the aid being misused or not reaching its intended target. These problems exist because the providers do not take into account the difference between their and the recipient's natural psychology. When they plan the delivery of the aid, they do so with the mindset of how the recipients would use the aid as if it was them. However, since the recipients have a different natural psychology that is unaccounted for, the aid programs are largely ineffective. Thus, it is important for aid-providing agencies to take a more nuanced and context-specific approach when providing aid for education to warm-climate third-world countries. This may involve working more closely with local communities and governments to understand their needs and priorities, and to ensure that the aid provided is tailored to their specific needs. It may also involve providing support for infrastructure, personnel training, and other resources needed to ensure the effective use of the aid. Ultimately, the goal should be to create a more integrated and sustainable system of education that is geared towards the natural psychology of the recipients and is better able to deliver long-term benefits for society.